So the Bitcoin ETF inflows this week have been really good. It's like we're back on good positive inflows.
We've got a lot of really good inflow this week. We even had a day that approached $1 billion in one day.
Yep.
So we are seeing, again, more interest driving increased assets under management.
Mm-hmm. Now, we were talking a few minutes ago off camera about the velocity here, about the volume going through. Explain a little bit more about that, what you were telling me.
Okay, well, we know that there's only about $60 billion in the assets for BTC ETFs, but they're churning about $300 billion a day in movement.
Just buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, right?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that works because I'm not a TradFi guy. I don't do the in and out day trading, but it looks like there's an awful lot of day trading because the average is, let's see, 60 and 300 billion. So that's 5 transactions a day for every piece of Bitcoin that's in there, for every dollar that's in the Bitcoin. And that's a lot of movement in a 24-hour period. That seems very high to me, but I don't know what traditional markets look like in that world.
Right. And that's interesting that it's going through the ETF that way, because I would assume, my guess at the beginning would have been the ETF is going to be sort of a slower investor that's not day trading. There's going to be putting some money in there. They're going to step back, right? Yeah. Looking for the big positives. So this sort of churning in the accounts is really interesting.
It is interesting. And we don't know, we don't have any insight into why though.
Or who, right? Yeah. Is it institutional or retail, or we don't know who's doing that?
Yeah, I don't expect institutional to move as quickly.
And that's what I thought.
It seems more like it would be like fickle traders.
Right.
But fickle traders in and out 5 times a day for every dollar that's in it, that sounds pretty high.
In an ETF, because they can go do that on Coinbase.
Excuse me. Yeah,
in their own wallet.
Yeah, you can trade lots, and I don't know what the fees look like in the ETF to trade in and out, but my understanding is they're very, very liquid, so it's easy to get in and out of them quickly. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's fee-free.
Right. Yeah, but you're right. It's different, though. They wouldn't have the on-chain fees if someone's buying it.
Well, you don't have on-chain fees at Coinbase, right? If you're on platform, you're only on their ledger, so there's no on-chain transaction, but there's still a fee associated.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that there's fees associated with buying and selling regular shares. I just don't know how painful that is. It's not like when gas on ETH spikes and then you got to make a move and it's $40 to move your dollars or your NFT or whatever. I mean, this is not how it works. They have some kind of a fee structure.
Right.
And so definitely somebody's profiting from that. The question is, why buy and sell so much? That's the part I don't understand. But then, not my world. The market is not my world.
Well, we've seen a little price movement this week on Bitcoin. We went above 70,000 again.
Yeah, we do this thing where we peak up and we're back down. We're like 69 and a half, something like that right now. So been a little up, a little bit of down. But I think the upward pressure is coming. It's we see more inflow again. We had a pause. We see more inflow again. We don't necessarily know what drives these, but we do know that now we're in June and we've had sustained increase in assets in Bitcoin ETFs.
Right.
There's been no long pause. We had that week or week and a half or whatever it was here and there that things kind of slowed down, but it's hard to understand what the market driver is for that. It's hard to say, oh, that's because people aren't interested. Because what I see is there are more and more players. And as we mentioned last time we met, there's over 50 million people who own some crypto today.
Right.
Well, when I got in, it was well below 30 million. It was, the numbers were a lot smaller. So we're seeing an increase in comfort level. People are becoming more used to having words like Bitcoin and Ethereum in their vocabulary. They're more used to thinking of them as financial assets, as opposed to Ponzi schemes or drug dealer money or whatever the old narratives are.
Well, I wonder, if Bitcoin was hitting up, it hit above 70 this week.
Yep.
So maybe if those institutions have been pouring millions of dollars in at 67,000, why not take some profits at 70? And they're watching the same charts we are. They know it's going to drop back down again, to get right back in again.
Sure, yeah, but it remains unknown in my mind is what are they paying for? What are they getting? So did they get a 3% bump, but they pay 0.5%? So they were happy to take a 2.5% gain. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that strategy is. I'm not a trader.
But I would be happy to take that on a $50 million investment.
Oh, I want
in a week and then go around and get back in again when it hits 67. They're watching it. They see it's not going to shoot up yet.
Yeah, I want 100x.
You do, but
come on, Pepe.
Institutions don't expect that.
No, I know.
And we've been talking. This is institutional money.
Professional traders typically won't even trigger more than 20%. They set their thing and they're out because it's not about where it goes. It's about taking profit out of the movement, right? And so, like the best people that I, talk to about it, they set their out before they get in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to do that because I'm a hodler. I buy it and I expect that I'm going to hold it for a long time.
Right.
So I feel like it will be higher in value because, 4 years ago, Bitcoin was less than 10K. Now it's 69K. That's a good win for me if I just hold it for a while.
Right.
So, I don't try and figure out how to get in and out in a day or a half a day or 4 hours. Or I'm not looking at charts like that. I'm looking at mass adoption, growth industry, rising tide is floating all these boats, and which boats are going to do the best is kind of the place that I want to be. Is where is it reliably going to go up, and then I can take that later as an advantage.
All right, but this is the ETF talk here.
Yeah. And
why is it doing that? And I think there's something there about the institutions are probably taking some profits on like we're seeing $800 million of inflows, right?
Well, kind of like
huge money is
kind of like we were talking with someone in the group this morning, and they were saying that they were shorting Nvidia now because Nvidia's had such a sky. But then we had another person in the group saying they just bought more Nvidia.
Right.
Right. So one person is expecting it to fall because it's climbed so high, and another person is expecting that AI and GPU demand is going to push the price higher. I don't know which is which, so I'm not ready to put my money in.
Right. Right.
That's not a place I play.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So now last week we talked about something and about sort of for this channel and talking about adoption. And this week something really interesting happened.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Very big news, actually. I don't think it got much traction in the market, but Robinhood saying that they want to buy BitStamp is absolutely huge.
Right.
If you think about that, that's a traditional stock trading platform that started dabbling in having a few cryptos, and now everybody in the world is screaming at them that we want more cryptos. We want more cryptos. Well, they're not really set up to run cryptos, and so the idea that they would go out and buy a company that is set up to do cryptos and fold the two together in a regulatory environment is a very big adoption move. It's a way for people that are less familiar with cryptos to get them on a platform without custody.
Right now, so people, I don't know if everyone watching knows this, BitStamp has been around since 2014, and they're just an exchange like Coinbase, but they're nothing like the mammoth Coinbase. They're small, but they've been around a long time.
They've been around a long time. They've shown that they're good at custody. They've shown that they're good with customers. They've been a reliable performer, and they seem to have stable management. Right. And I think these are all things that entice the traditional world to be more comfortable. Right. If you're very volatile and you've been around for a week, I'm probably not going to invest a lot of money in you. But if you've been around for years, even if I don't understand your market, at least I know that you know your market and you can play there. Right. So that makes it investable. And then they can start doing their due diligence and figure out whether or not it's a good fit. Apparently, Robinhood is the first one that I can see that's done this to say, no, this is a good fit, and we're going to go ahead and make the play. Right. And I don't remember how much money it was.
200 million is what they 200 million. They're paying for it.
So they're not giant, right? The BitStamp is not giant.
Yeah.
But 200 million is not chump change.
No, it's not. And for Robinhood to go for this, they're a traditional they're a traditional player in stocks, and they want to, hopefully their play is to fold this into the app.
Right.
So you can just hit the button, buy your Tesla stock, hit another button, buy some Ethereum, hit another button, stake, because you can, that's part of what that world is going to, in BitStamp, you can be staking and doing that sort of thing on there.
I wonder how the regulations will affect them as they fold the company in.
Right, maybe they limit some of that.
Maybe they're not allowed to stake because they're regulated.
Maybe.
Right? I don't know. I think that's part of what they have to work out before the merger actually takes place, which, by the way, is not until 2025.
Yeah, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time.
Yeah. Well, they have to look into the books really close, and they have to look at the personalities, and then they have to go. I think they've got to go at least 90 days where you could see that they aren't just about to collapse, and that's why they're selling.
Could be. Right.
There's things like that.
Yeah, there is. There's periods of time.
Yeah, if your timing is such that I have to get out, then if I wait a little longer, then maybe I get you cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you don't want to sell when you're under pressure like that somebody could see.
Right.
And you don't want to buy if you can't see that.
Right. Yeah, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So also PayPal was doing something, because we've talked before, you can buy crypto on PayPal. And I actually like that system, what they're doing. But they're switching off of Ethereum into Solana. Have you heard that?
I've not heard that.
They're doing something behind the scenes on their network, and it might be for the PayPal stablecoin.
Okay. Oh,
have you heard about that? Right.
I did hear about that.
Yeah, I think because if they want it to be transaction speed and low fees, probably maybe that's why
it makes sense to push it to Solana.
Right.
Fees, lower fees, but it might not make sense to push it to Solana for other reasons. Right, for security,
right,
for finality of transactions.
Always on is not exactly always on if you want transactions to go through.
Yeah. There are issues with all of them, but you're right. The Pi USD thing is going to be important, and likely they're moving to a place where they feel it's better for them in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that they won't have to move it, or stable coins don't have to stay on one chain. So they could decide to make Pi USD Solana,
mm-hmm.
and then they could later make Pi USD Ethereum, and they just run on different chains.
Right.
And they're still a stable coin. They're still pegged to the dollar,
right,
or whatever the assets they're pegged to.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of where do they operate and how do you take advantage of them.
Right.
And, Ethereum is where, DeFi became a thing, and there's huge DeFi markets there that need stable coins.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good target. Even if they start on Solana, they get comfortable with their stablecoin, they may want to push into other chains in order to take advantage of the opportunities.
And PayPal owns Venmo. Okay. And so one of the things is you can't just go from PayPal to Venmo. You can't just send them across to each other. Right. And that's been kind of an issue for people. And so when I was listening to an interview with the PayPal some executive, I don't know if it was quite the CEO, but it might have been. And that's part of why they were doing this, because now you can go from PayPal to their stablecoin to Venmo. That's the point of this, is so, or at least one of the reasons for this is being able to go across that way from PayPal to Venmo.
I gotcha.
So I think this is great for everything. I mean, it's great for stablecoins. It's great for the legitimacy of adoption of crypto. So many people use Venmo to move money around.
Yeah, I'm not really
retail people.
Not really familiar with the Venmo thing. I know they've had some bad rap for scams that go on where you have to pay through Venmo and stuff like this. And but they have been around a long time. Yeah. They are a money services provider.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see the synergy there.
Most people that I know in my normal business world stuff use Venmo for sure to get money back and forth to kids and family members.
So now when PayPal first started doing crypto, you couldn't self-custody. They wouldn't transfer it out to you. Is that still the case?
No, you can move it off in your own wallet now.
You can move it out.
Yes, there's that's chain fees. I mean, you're going to be paying fees for that.
Sure, but
you can move it off PayPal.
But I remember when it first came out, they were like, "Oh, you can hold it, but it's not yours."
Right.
And that weirded me out. I was like, "Okay, I'm out. I don't. Yeah, I don't need that."
Yep. No, they do, and I've done it. I bought Bitcoin and Ethereum and moved it into my normal hot wallet.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but they just don't have a lot of offerings.
Right. Their variety is limited.
Yeah,
and that makes sense though when you think about somebody like PayPal or Venmo or Square or these companies that are more traditional. It's hard for them to even get regulatory clarity enough to be able to say, I'm going to hold Bitcoin, let alone hold Pepe or WIF or something like this.
Right.
Like, what are you trying to use as a tool? How is this useful as a financial instrument? This is a meme coin, right? So
because PayPal is not an investing platform, right? It's your sort of your online banking account.
Yeah, so I think it grew out of eBay, didn't it? It was eBay needed a way for them for you to be able to pay, and so you had to connect to them and then put money into your account so that you could spend it.
Yeah.
If I remember right, when I first got to PayPal, I was using a credit card, and then they were like, "Oh, you can only do that for the first $2,000 or something, and then you have to create an account."
Yeah.
So I think that's how I ended up with a PayPal account, which I probably haven't touched in 5 years.
Well, my PayPal's my bank. That's how I get paid.
Oh, okay.
All of my regular income, whether it's commissions or just my salary all goes into my PayPal. I can move it to a bank whenever I need to. I mean, it is for me. I use it for my bank completely. Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's really easy then for me if I want to buy some Bitcoin, I can just pull open the app and hit a button and I'm buying it. Now the fees are a little bit high,
okay,
but it's super, super easy. So I don't have to take it, move it into a stable coin, into a wallet, move it to Coinbase. A lot of different jumps there.
Right. With fees.
With fees.
Yeah.
Right. Now I can buy the PayPal stable coin and I can move that to Coinbase.
Gotcha.
If I want to, or I can just obviously into my own wallet. So it's very, very handy. I really do wish their fees would go down. If you're buying small amounts, it's pretty high.
Yeah.
If you're buying more than $1,000 actually in like the say Bitcoin, the fees are pretty reasonable. And I can't remember off the top of my head what they were, but I remember seeing once you hit that $1,000 threshold, the fees are pretty reasonable.
Okay.
But if you're doing like under $100, the fees are pretty brutal.
Right.
Pretty brutal.
That makes sense though. I mean,
yeah.
A lot of times the smaller player can't play because the fees kill them.
Yep.
You could go copy trade somebody, but if you aren't at the larger volumes, then all the trading fees and everything just eat you alive. You can't really do like they did.
Yeah. Have you seen anything else this week on adoption that makes you kind of excited in crypto?
Well, I've been working a lot of overtime, so I haven't been paying a lot of attention. I'm under a lot of pressure at work, so unfortunately, I can't follow the meme coins too much.
Right. And the only thing I really saw that we already just talked about was the Robinhood acquisition. So
yeah. Well, I saw that, but I mean, I haven't been focusing. This been under pressure to complete something. So.
Yeah, and I'm really excited when this Ethereum ETF starts trading.
Yeah, I think that it kind of remains to be seen if that's going to create a euphoria, but I'm hopeful that starts to create an Ethereum euphoria because Ethereum hasn't really moved hard yet.
Right.
And, I mean, we're up near 4,000 and all that, but we haven't moved hard like some of the other things have moved. And if you look at Solana was under $30 when things kicked off, and now Solana's about $150, $160.
Right.
Well, let's see, ETH was 1,500 back then.
What's their time frame on that? How long back are you looking?
3 months, 4 months.
Okay.
Not very far.
Yeah.
But there's no way we got anywhere close to 5x in Ethereum.
No.
Because 1,400,
right,
1,500, you'd be at 7,500. We're at 36, 37. So not the same kind of growth. And yet that market is still highly active. A lot of things going on. A lot of ecosystem effect. Multiple coins, multiple L2s riding on top of it. Lots of activity. Maybe not quite as much as Solana because of the meme coin craze that's going on. Right. But it's still significant dollar amounts. And the dollar amounts are much higher than Solana in terms of like market value, total value lock, these kinds of things. So it seems like it should have already moved and it hasn't. So, in a bigger way. What's up with... Oh, go ahead. I was going to say it's also the Bitcoin ETH ratio is still out of whack a little bit.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So ETH needs to come up.
To keep within that.
To keep parity, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's up with the meme coin rallies on Solana? Why are there... So there's a lot of meme coins coming out now.
Thousands and thousands every day.
Where's that coming from?
Well, it's the democratization of minting fresh
coins. So the ease of being able
to
create one now.
At this point now, you could take less than $50 and create a liquidity pool for a new coin that you can make yourself in less than 10 minutes.
Okay.
And people are doing this like crazy. And, some of them are doing it like with a plan to try and take it pump and dump.
Right.
And some people are just having fun, playing around, making their own coin because it's cheap. And you have to evaluate those on their merits and decide whether or not it's something you like. But, 99% of those are going right to zero.
Oh, yeah.
Going right to zero in less than 24 hours. So they're here and they're gone and it's really fast. But that craze is getting people onto the Solana platform and it's making them comfortable with the wallet. It's making them comfortable with dApps. It's helping bring people in because it's exciting and social. Right. And so people talk about it. And then when they talk about it to somebody who isn't in. And then that person's like, well, tell me about this stuff.
So you see this as good for Solana or just good for crypto?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Or both.
I think it's good for both.
Okay.
But I think there's risk in the fact that so much of it is scammy or not well thought out. I mean, maybe not scammy. Maybe scammy is the wrong word. Maybe it's more like, I don't know how to run a coin, but I made one. So now I don't know how to run a coin, but I have one.
Right.
And now it went to zero and I don't know how to resurrect it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you look at something like Epic Duck, they're just out there just shouting it.
The social side of it.
The social media side of it is off the hook. There's probably 5,000 to 10,000 posts a day in their Telegram.
Really?
A day. Yeah, no, crazy big, okay? And they're not moving. They're like, I think they're like 2 cents.
Okay.
They're not worth much. They're one of these ones that came out of this 10,000 plus a day that just being made out of nothing on Solana. But the team is trying to push it forward hard, and more than anybody else seems to be pushing on these little pump.fun ones. They either take off because they resonate, or they have some kind of a group behind them that pushes them, or they disappear. Those are like the 3 choices.
Right.
You resonate, you have a team and you're really making a coin, and you just, that was an easy way to do it.
Yeah.
Or you're going to zero.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, those are the 3 options.
That's the 3 options. Yeah.
Right. Do you think this could clog up Solana?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. I think there's a lot of challenges in like, if you keep putting things, all these contracts and all this weird stuff on there, what happens when you want to execute, right? You're going to, if you're really executing, then you're going to have to go chase it back down and run through part of the contract to, on the EVM. And I don't know that that's, I think what we're talking about is the activity is clogging up transactions. We already have a huge amount of failed transactions in Solana. Solana is not super consistent in terms of being able to complete. And in fact, that's, something we didn't talk about. When I first got on pump.fun, I started just poking around and just trying to look at stuff. And I figured if I'm going to learn something, I should just go buy one and see what happens to it so that I have some experience. It was really hard to buy. Really hard to buy.
It was just failing. The transaction was failing?
I could never get the transaction to complete. It was like, I went through it. I probably spent 20 or 30 minutes trying to redo a transaction that should have taken about 15 seconds.
Was it failing on the Solana end, or was it the pump.fun part that was?
So it's not Solana that was having the trouble. It was a Solana DEX. Okay. So there's a number of DEXs on Solana that you can run and do coins on. Okay. And one of the most popular ones for pump.fun is Radium. And Radium seems to be very similar in the way that it operates to like Uniswap, except that it doesn't seem to complete very well. Like maybe the math isn't working out behind the scenes. Now, I know back in the day, PancakeSwap and Uniswap are both like clones. Well, I think PancakeSwap is older. And then Uniswap took on, even though it's bigger, took on the same base. Okay. But the underlying math for how to calculate the exchanges is related to a number that runs out to 9 or 12 digits on the side. And then does this one equal that one, and how the exchange rates and sorting the numbers. I think the math troubles some people who are not good programmers. Okay. Real numbers in a computer are a whole huge thing that is not a topic for us, but let's just say that every real number cannot be represented in a computer. And so you get increments on either side of a number. So you have the number, and then there's a number that can be represented on either side of it based on how much resolution you have, or how much resolution you've chosen in your calculation. And there's a fundamental limit to how many possibilities you can calculate using a computer. Okay. In math, you can infinite number of numbers. There's an infinite number of real numbers. Right. Well, there's no infinite capabilities in a computer. Right. So this is one of the challenges. Okay. You take and you calculate a real number, and it's a multi-step process. You expect to arrive at the same number, but your number is right here, and the one calculation brought you to the number below it, and the other calculation brought you to the number above it, and then you make a comparison of those numbers. They're not the same number.
Right.
Well, that means that you can't complete because
this have to match.
This does not equal that.
Okay.
Well, if you're doing math programmatically in a computer, if this doesn't equal that, then no action.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. We had this problem in PancakeSwap for a while, about a year and a half ago. It was terrible. And we were always struggling to change the numbers around a little bit to see if it will make the transaction happen. Well, Radium seems to have a similar problem.
How did they solve it on PancakeSwap?
I don't know.
It must have been a programming solve behind the scenes.
It's a programming solve behind the scenes for sure.
Okay.
So I think what happens is, so in my experience with real number calculations, what we had to say was within a level of uncertainty, we are equivalent. So when they come in like this,
okay,
if the difference between them is small enough, so if I'd say my difference can be, this much, then when they're this far apart, that's the same. I'm inside the box.
Yeah.
Okay. And from a math standpoint, so you're calculating and then you're giving an error rate for execution. If you don't include that error rate, you might not complete.
Okay.
Okay. So that's kind of a layman's way to say it, is that you really can't put every number in a computer, can't be represented directly. And then when you go to compare, if they don't line up directly, it's not equivalent because it's absolute in a computer.
So I am the layman here and trying to understand this. Are you talking like a decimal point, 1.0042? I mean, going way out, right?
Yeah, real number, decimal.
That's what you mean. And how far out are we talking on the decimal point
Well, it doesn't matter how far you go.
Okay.
Okay. When you represent real numbers in a computer, you use a power and a mantissa. And so you have a number and then you have a multiplier for the number. And so the way that you represent it has to end up being a power of 2. And it's a fractional power of 2. So it's a weird thing where you're going 1 over instead of power of 2. It's 1 over a power of 2.
Okay.
And it's really hard to understand. There's a huge thing in IEEE about how real numbers are calculated and how you get to the real answers.
Okay.
How you store them. But the bottom line is it's complicated mathematical theory.
Right.
And the mathematical theory in pure numbering, like a decimal system or something like this, we can represent. But in a binary, we can't represent every decimal number.
Oh, that's interesting. And I never even knew this.
Oh,
right? I just thought numbers are numbers.
I was in computers 20 years before I ever even heard such a thing. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah, no, this is something that was really interesting to me about 15 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know this.
If I remember right, it's IEEE 788 is the standard, but don't call me on that. But I mean,
I won't.
I mean, if you went and Googled that, it might just take you right to it, and then there's be a 4 or 5 paragraph explanation that's way better than I can give you about why it doesn't always work out.
Okay,
but you're talking about a contract that somebody puts on a chain that's going to do calculations using the EVM. And so when those calculations must be I'm equal and they're not, they don't execute.
And this is a smart contract, you're saying, right?
Contract,
so it needs to...
essentially, all of that stuff is either
every trade
contract
is a smart
or a DEX. And in either way, it's still programmed.
Okay.
It's still code that runs. Whether it's built into a smart contract or whether it's a dApp that you operate on by going to it specifically on the web, the reality of it is it's still code that runs. It's not a human behind there going, yes, no, this is the ratio.
Correct.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
The way that it works is the computer goes and it looks up and says, what is the value in the liquidity pool? What is my pair? How do I index? What's the ratio between them? And now I'm dealing with a lot of real numbers because I'm trading a half an ETH for 300 million Pepe, or I'm trading 0.4675 Solana for 25,000 Pepe, or, it's real number against a integer number, right?
Okay.
Because you're shitcoin is worth pennies,
Mm-hmm.
and your ETH or your Solana is worth hundreds of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to use a little piece of the main coin, and you're going to get a whole bunch of this other one. Well, that's not going to be. It's not even. The problem is it's not an integer either. It's a real number because you got a whole bunch. It's like 220,000 point blah 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 of Pepe for your half an ETH. It's not 400,000. It's 400,000 point something.
Right. Okay.
And they're calculating these on both sides of the equation. How much is this worth? How much does that translate into? How many am I going to get here? What's the slippage? And then it comes together, and there are all these steps that have to be accounted for.
Okay.
Okay. When one of those steps fails, your transaction fails.
Right.
And this is what's happening: is there's these little innuendos of math uncertainties that are part of the computing world.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people in Web3 and in smart contracts are not long-term Web2 developers. They're not long-term coders in the industry. They're newer to the game.
Right.
So they don't necessarily have the experience or have run into things like real number comparisons.
Interesting. This problem has been solved like in the stock market. Would you have the same problem in the stock market with trading?
Yeah. So the math in that, I have a friend that does programming in the real world stock markets.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly difficult work.
Yeah.
Very complex.
Right.
Lots of things to consider.
Yeah.
And my buddy did translation between currencies.
Okay.
For over 100 currencies.
Mm-hmm.
So you could pick the dollar against the ruble or the rupee or the shekara or the whatever, and or the franc or the pound, and it will do that translation, and it'll figure out that gap we were talking about where this is equal,
right?
And these guys are like this, and it's like, nope, it's close enough.
Okay,
it's less than 1,000th of a penny. Move on.
So they figured it out in the traditional world. Now we need to figure the same problem out.
It's not that you can't figure it out. It's that you have to know that it's a problem,
right? And
you have to chase the solution.
Okay,
and we're a little more fast and loose in the crypto world. Right. And we have people who decide to become knowledgeable. So they educate themselves. And I think that's great. I do the same thing. But if I educate myself how to use Python, I'm not a Python expert.
Right.
Somebody else is a Python expert. I'm dabbling.
Right. Yeah, that depth of experience, right? They don't have 15 years doing this. They maybe have a couple years doing this. And that's interesting. Yeah,
it's difficult to know all the things if you're not in your industry. Like we talked about me getting certified in my industry a while back, and it's been a long time coming. I've been in the industry more than 30 years. I probably could have taken these tests a long time ago, but there wasn't a lot of demand. Right. But having been around a long time, when it was time to study for it, it was like, yeah, I know that. Oh, I've seen that before. Yeah, I've seen that's a big problem. Right. They're familiar.
Yeah.
Whereas another person that was doing the same studying with me, who had only been doing this for less than 10 years, but still is quite good and quite capable.
Yeah.
Was sitting there going, I've never heard of this.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Right.
I've never heard this term before.
It was just the experience, right? The depth of experience. They hadn't been there long enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I think that as we mature in Web3 and as we become more aware and share in the challenges of what happens, those things will get cleaned up, and there'll be answers to make them more reliable. I'm sure Radium is going to get more reliable because they're busy trying to provide a service, and when they see that they have lots of failed transactions, they're going to have to look into why. I mean, if they're doing their job, if they're not, they'll disappear.
Right. They will.
If they're doing their job, then they're going to get bigger, and they'll be more like Jupiter and less like something you've never heard of.
And then they can afford to bring those people with that depth of knowledge and the experience with programming the numbers to solve this for them.
Yeah, I think as more people from the traditional programming and software development world get comfortable with moving into crypto and start moving into crypto, a lot of the clunkiness and a lot of the things that are like kind of seem childish or amateurish in our world will go away.
Okay.
Those problems, like I can't scroll because the person who made the Web3 app didn't set the scroll up properly. Now, we had these problems in Windows back in the 90s or the early 2000s or something.
Right.
And they started figuring out how to solve it. And now you just call on some app or some subroutine to solve that scrolling problem for you. And all those details have been worked to ground and then made into a little package that you can call up to use in your programs. That means you don't have to be knowledgeable about what the challenge was. You need to be knowledgeable about that there is a challenge and there's a solution there that you can utilize.
Okay.
Right? Nobody wants to reinvent all the code. It's too hard to write code. So everybody wants to use all the other code that already works and write the piece that isn't there for what your application is.
Right.
It's much better to do that way.
Well, it makes sense.
Call up a library that already has a print function in it and let it print to one of the 300,000 kinds of printers that it can print to. You know?
Okay.
It figures out which printer you want to talk to and it translates from the software of whatever it is that you're using into print speak and prints it for you.
Okay.
Instead of you having to write low-level drivers to do it.
Right.
Where you make a mistake and then the printer starts, why is it going a page for every character? Stop, I help me. Right?
Yeah.
Those things have kind of gone away because the packages have been integrated and made available.
Okay.
You call a service.
Yeah.
So we're going to get that. Web3 is going to mature.
It will.
It's just, it's like 1997 on the internet or something, right? It's a little clunky.
Yep.
You use this browser, it works good. You use that browser, it doesn't work quite as good.
Oh, God.
Right?
Yes.
Like, bring me back some Netscape.
Right. That's funny.
I love Netscape. I'm so sad that it disappeared. It was so good. It was clean. It was beautiful, man. You just couldn't buy anything because there was nothing for sale yet.
Right. That's funny.
So it's a beautiful day today. Do we have to keep talking? Or
no, we're
get
done.
the hell out of here.
Let's get out of here today. All right.
All right. Let's go to the lake.
All right.